All right, what's going on YouTube? I'd like to welcome you to another tutorial. This is going to be a part 2 of the one that we did in the last video where we created this component to upload files to Supabase. Now, unlike the last video, which this component could only upload a single file at a time, this video is going to be about uploading multiple files at one time. So you will need to watch the last video and do everything there to get caught up to here because we're going to be using that last video as the starting point for this one. So go watch the last one. The link will be up in, I think it's over here. The card will be up there. Watch that last video, then come back to this one. So once you have everything set up like the last video, we're now going to make some changes to get this to work. So let's start off with some variables. Now we're going to change this from file to files, since we're now dealing with multiple, excuse me, and we're going to add one more variable called files index, and we're going to set that to an initial value of 0. Okay, now that we have that, I just want to come over to my input and I just want to make sure that on change, when we're setting files, that you make sure that you are getting all the files, not just a singular one. I think in the last video, it might have looked something like this. We're just saying to only get the first one from files, but in this one, we want all of them. So make sure that your formula here looks something like that. Okay. And we just want to make sure that in the attributes of our input that we have multiple set to true. Now, once we have that, we now have to make some changes to our API requests. So we're going to change this first one, the generate pre-signed token, and we're going to go over here to inputs, and we're going to add a new input, and we're going to call it file. So as you can kind of guess, this is where the active file that we are trying to upload is going to go. So now, if you remember from the last video, this section right here in the URL is where you would put the name of your file. So if I had a file called cat PNG, that's where it would go. So we want to make sure that we get that name, not from files, but from that file that we just added as a input. Now, we're going to come back to this API request, where we're going to go make a change to our second one really quickly, being the upload file. We're going to go to inputs, and we're going to add that same file input. And I believe the only thing that needs to be changed here is in the body. Instead of files, we want to get that file from the input. So now that we have that, let's go back to our first request. And on the success event, where we're calling that second event to upload, the second API request to upload the file, we want to make sure that we add that new file input that we just added, and we're going to map that to the same file input as the first request. So basically, the file is going to pass through both of these, right? So now that we have those two things set up, we're now going to have to create a repeating workflow so that all the files that are in all the files that are in files get uploaded. So to do that, we're going to add a workflow. Let's call it something like upload loop or something like that. Okay. And I'm going to add a switch here. And I'm going to say in this if statement of the switch that if files size not equal to the index, then we want to run what's on this left side. So I'm going to say index doesn't equal files size, something like that, whatever you want to add there. Okay. So this is where we're going to add our loop. So the first thing we want to do is call that first the first API, the generate pre-signed token. And we want to make sure that we add our file by saying, hey, in files, we want to get files index. So on the first run, that's going to be 0. So it's going to add the first file. And then after that API request, we want to say, sorry, we want to set file index to file index, and we're going to add 1, and then we're going to run this loop again. So what's going to happen is when it first runs, file index is 0, which means the first file it's going to run. It's going to generate the token for it. It's going to upload it. Then it's going to increase files index by 1 and then call this loop again. So now when we circle back and it calls this loop again, file index is now equal to 1. It's going to go here, trigger, again, sorry, this is assuming we have 2 files. It's going to trigger this. Now here, since file index is now 1, it's going to get that second file from files. And then do the whole thing again, and then continuously do that until this file index and the size of files match. So basically, if file size is 2 and index is 2, then this will no longer be true, and it's going to go over here to the else. And in this else, we can just log something like finished. Okay. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that we change on our form submit. We change from calling that first API request to now calling the workflow loop that we just created. And I believe that is all we need to do. So let's go over here. Sorry, I had some testing things there. Let's go over here. Let's give it a try. We're going to do upload files. I know you can't see it, but I'm going to add 2 cat pictures. I don't even know why I'm using cat pictures. I've never had a cat. I do like cats, but I've never had a cat. But we're using cat pictures. And we're going to go ahead. Let's take a look at our network tab and see what happens when we press upload. So now you're going to see that we have 2 runs here, 2 for the generate the pre-signed tokens and 2 for the upload files. And if we go to our console real quick, we see that we got finished and we were successful twice, which was on the success of the upload file right there. So now let's take a look into Supabase and we'll refresh, and you can see we have our 2 lovely cat pictures. And that's basically all there is to have multiple uploads instead of just the one like in the last video. Now, if you like this video, please leave a like, subscribe to this channel if you want more. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.